Ça va?
Jose, they give me little souvenir mini camel.
Merci. Faux. Enchanté.
Santé.
This is a fresh off the block GX 390 tank from a rotavator that is also made by Honda, and for all those dodgy fuel ups it has a filter in the top. Here is my attempt at getting the leg rack the right way round. Now in order to test the fitting I need to take all of the fairing bolts out to put the rack on. Once I'd figured out the configuration, it does end up fitting perfect like a glove. Now it's time to test how the auxiliary tank fits on the rack. This isn't so intuitive as the bolts and holes are asymmetrical to one another. I also made sure there was room for the seat to open. Because the tank isn't held in there by magic, I started making the frame out of aluminium. My original plan was to use steel, but B&Q only had aluminium in stock, so I layered this up twice. The aluminium was 2mm thick. Note to self, always use the right drill bit.
There you go.
Cheers, mum. Before continuing on the second layer, I just made sure this one fit, and it did, so we're on to round 2. These holes are about the size of my nostrils, so 8mm in diameter. Now it was time to make the arms for the tank. Ooh. Using the correct drill bit makes the aluminium feel like butter. Easy. Here I'm taking off the ends of the aluminium arms so that they don't pierce the tank when I secure it. Trying to make life hard for myself using a ruler. It turns out the Sharpie and tape combo was far superior. This is the perfect ruler replacement. I always find it easier to score the metal before I go straight in. Here's me testing it fits with some M8 bolts. I put two 25mm coupling nuts by the leg shield bracket to ensure correct spacing for the tank arm. With the tank now secured by the legs, I can put the bracket underneath the rack. Just a quick interruption. I want to say a huge thank you to everyone who helped make this journey possible. And for those of you that enjoy these videos, drop a like, hit subscribe, and let me know your thoughts, ideas, or even your own experiences in the comments below. Also, if you know someone who would enjoy this, share it with them. Alright, back to the video. After ensuring the tank fits well enough, I take the leg shield off to gain access to the fuel line and petcock valve. Here's me getting a workout pulling the fuel line off the petcock valve. I'm using a 5-litre can to collect all of the fuel left in the original tank. Because the Halford's inline filter was so long, I decided to trim it with my Stanley. I wanted to leave myself enough fuel line here so that if any errors were made, I didn't have to pull the original tank out. I attached the cut fuel line to the end of the fuel filter and secured it with a Jubilee clip. This new petcock valve differs to the old one in that it has a second inlet for the reserve, which will be attached to the auxiliary tank. I decided to put on the Jubilee clips before the non-return valve. The fuel line was slightly too long, so I decided to trim it down. There was about a finger width's distance between the non-return valve and the petcock valve. It's not conducive to good health to cut towards yourself, so I wouldn't recommend doing that. I had forgotten the second Jubilee clip here, so pulled it off and put the new one on. The Jubilee clip bolts were rather bulbous, so I had to make sure they were out of the way of the valve lever so it could turn. Now was a good opportunity to put the leg shield back on and feed the fuel line through the right vent. I see a lot of photos online of Honda Cubs without these sleeve bolts securing the leg shield. I decided to put them back on mine to stop it from rattling. Four pairs of hands would make this job a dream. The fuel line was too long, but again make sure you don't cut it too short. The fuel from the original tank came in very handy. From the video it looks like everything's working okay, but actually the bike kept on cutting out, so deja vu ensued. We took the plastic fairing back off.
It's pointing to on now, isn't it? Yeah?
Yeah, so that is on.
Yeah.
And attempted a restart. We thought the issue might be to do with the original tank's fuel line, so we took the petcock valve off to test the fuel flow rate. We realised there was no fuel in the original tank. Albeit slow, we realised after some fueling there was some flow rate. The next thing to try was the petcock valve, which was not blowing through. To ensure it definitely wasn't the old tank fuel line, I put the old petcock valve on and fueled up for another kickstart. Given that the engine was starting again, this consequently meant that the issue was the new petcock valve. So in the time in which it took for another one to arrive, I decided to give the original tank a little bit of a sprucing up. The screws for the fuel sensor were Hulk proof. After using a rubber band and threading them, we resorted to using a Dremel. This is my broken flathead. The fuel sensor float was quite delicate, so we had to edge that out slowly. I couldn't remove the tank with the fuel filter inline, so I needed to remove that first. Then the tank just slips right out, bringing a present of spider webs with it. Here is the inline filter and non-return valve. I didn't need to include this, but the sky looked lovely. We wanted to get a new fuel line on the original tank, so we took the old one off. And in order to clean the debris out of the original tank, we poured a little bit of fuel in, gave it a swish, and then poured it out onto a rag. This is our attempt at trying to tessellate the original tank back into its position.
So anything is it? It's not got pressure, it's gravity fed, it's going to be...
Being fast forward makes this look very brash, but I am being delicate with the fuel level sensor. I then used new screws to replace the threaded ones at the top. Now we could re-secure the seat back into its original place. I'm exchanging the old fuel line for the new Halfords reinforced 6mm diameter fuel line. It's slightly firmer than the original, so it took some force to secure everything again. Here I'm making sure my lungs work and that the non-return valve is put in the correct way. Just to make sure that the clean tank and the new line worked, we tried it on the old petcock valve again. Given that it worked, it was time to put another new petcock valve in. The issue with the original new petcock valve was that the O-ring had bent within the mechanism, negating any flow of fuel when connected to the original tank. Now it was time to retest the new petcock valve. It worked, nice. Before connecting the auxiliary tank, I tested the fuel line with this other fuel tank. It worked great, so now it's time to get the fairing back on. Given that the arms were aluminium, they were fairly malleable, so I could bend them to the auxiliary tank easily. Now it was time to refuel and give the auxiliary tank a go.
It's our Picasso drawing out here. Look at that sunset. What a beautiful view. Cheers, mate. can't see what speed I'm doing, which means the speedometer is not attached properly. We have to fix that. Might be worth changing tanks just to make sure both work. Switcheroony. Bosh. Round 2. Come on. Boosh. Oh, it's windy. So I've got nothing on apart from me, no luggage on the bike at the moment, and I can feel the wind, albeit it's quite a windy day. I'm thinking with the luggage on it's going to catch that breeze a little bit more, and I'll be like a boat in the wind sailing along. So even if my engine's cut out, I'll have the wind to push me along and get me to and back from the Sahara Desert. So it's feeling like it's working and it's not cutting out, which is excellent news. Yeah, I could be going over 100 miles an hour right now. I wouldn't be able to tell because my speedo's not working, but I reckon it's at least 20. Right, we'll give it some welly. Come on, son. Bosh.